Welcome to the 100 Master Coaches series featuring master coaches from around the world. Let's journey together on this 100 Master Coaches series with your host, Coach Mel, MCC. Libby Robinson is the managing partner of Integral, an award-winning leadership, executive coaching, and advisory company to Fortune 1000 companies. A former Wall Street banker, aerospace engineer, and National Champion Equestrian, Libby works with senior leaders globally, helping to bring more mindfulness, resilience, and greater capacity at work. Now on to the show.
Hello, and welcome to the 100 Master Coaches series. This is Coach Mel, and today we have a special guest. She's from Paris and New York. Please give a round of applause to Libby Robinson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So tell us, how did it all begin for you, your coaching journey?
Goodness. So I'll try to give you the quick version. And let me start by saying I was working on Wall Street as an analyst for a very large banking firm in what were called mortgage-backed securities at the time. Okay. And I had a math and computer science major, undergraduate degrees. And this was the kind of big hot area to be in. So at 23, I was, having limos home and making more money than my father had ever made. And, I had sort of had the American dream, and I was miserable. I was miserable. And I met some people that were doing some personal development workshops at the time. And I started to find out about this whole kind of world of kind of waking up and self-awareness and communication styles and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, sign me up, whatever that is. I actually met them at a party, and there were all these really stuffy bankers with cocktails. And over in the corner, there were some people that really looked like they were having fun. So I got rid of my date for a little while. I was like, what are you guys drinking? Because I want some of that. And they're like, oh, well, we did this, workshops. So that opened my eyes to personal development. And then as I was, struggling one day at my, toiling in my, office, I found out that there was a whole world called organizational development. And from that, I found out, so I started a graduate program in organizational development and transformation. And I, like some of the other guests you may know you've had on your show, I existed as a coach before the ICF. So very nice. I started coaching, and before we even really called it coaching. And then, so that's the thing. I think the basic thing was I was miserable as an employee.
That's fantastic. So I hear you say from an analyst to development or personal development or people development, right? What made that shift, besides just the fantastic company and these people talking about, perhaps more positive things, right? With a nice energy with that as well. What was that pull factor for you?
I saw people living better lives. I saw people really coming out of their shells, people really transforming through the different workshops and facilitators and really amazing, powerful teachers that I met through this. And I thought, wow, I want some of this. I want this in my life. And I knew that I was pretty good with words and people and being curious and being creative and things like that. And so I didn't fit, I understood math and computer science, and I could program and I could do all that sort of stuff, but it wasn't where my heart was. And so as I started doing this work on myself, which included therapy, in New York, everybody does therapy. So, but I realized I didn't want to be a therapist. I was like, oh, no, I don't want to be there with people crying and sobbing. And I was like, so, and then I found this area of coaching. I also, just prior to that, while I was working at the investment bank, as part of some of these workshops, some of them did these things called ropes courses, you know, where they put you up trees and you jump off things and do all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
So I became a certified
Oh,
ropes course facilitator
wow.
1,000 years ago, and I love that. So here's this beginning of working with
Got
people
it.
as they're literally at the top of a tree, going to go off a zip
Yeah.
line,
Yeah.
and talking to them about whether, you know, how, you know, to kind of get them set and to breathe and to be ready to take the, you know, take the leap.
Yeah.
In this case, not metaphorically, but
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
And so it just built on itself. And I
Mm.
knew that I could never go back to the type of organizational culture that I had been sort of brought up in, which was, you know,
Mm.
very tough, very backbiting, very political. You know, it was Wall Street.
Mm.
Before that, I was in the defense industry, and you know, the same sort of thing that was just very, I don't know, lifeless. Um, so I was looking for
Mm.
passion. I was looking for my soul's calling.
So nice. So nice when you just say that, you know. I'm sure there are people out there listening and they're maybe also feeling that way, right? It's like, but this is what I studied, right? This is where I got some years of experience, right? So how did you just jump from there, right? I know it was, you know, like passionate for you. It gave you
Mm-hmm.
freedom and a lot more
Mm-hmm.
stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
some people are just wondering, but that's what I've been doing for X number of years, you know. Even
Mm-hmm.
though this side is exciting and I've thought about that, but I
Mm-hmm.
just never had the chance to get there. So what do you say for that kind of people?
Yeah. I think taking the leap, I think one of, you know,
Mm,
taking the leap is one of the hardest things to do. And because it can feel like, oh my God, I'm never going to make any money
yeah.
again. Or I don't know how I'm going to take care of things, right? At the time that I chose to do these things, I was single, I didn't have a child, and I was able to basically, I can remember bringing bags of Brooks Brothers suits, you know, to the Goodwill and
Oh
dropping them
wow.
off and feeling so
Wow.
good. You know, I was like, I'm never going to wear pantyhose again. um, I do occasionally, but so it's a big leap. I think the
Mm,
pain sometimes has to be great enough. It sounds silly. It's easy to say, oh, well, I just was so, you know, I just did it because I was, you know, so advanced. No, I was in a lot of pain
mm,
emotionally. And I knew that the path that I was on at the bank
yeah.
was not going to make me happy.
Mm,
And I knew that there was something more. I didn't know from my, you know, my father was an entrepreneur, my mother worked in real estate, but they didn't have advanced degrees or anything. And I knew that there was something more, but I just couldn't put my finger on it. So I had to do something.
yeah.
And I went towards the things that made me happy. So the workshop and the ropes course and the little by little, you know, so I didn't give up everything right away. You know, I did a few things kind of as a, what I might call a taxi job, you know,
Mm,
meaning
mm,
sometimes, and
yeah.
I did actually, when I went to
Yeah.
graduate school
Yeah.
in California, I came with 2 suitcases and I didn't really have any money. And I had a dream about driving a taxi cab. And I took out loans to get to graduate school and things.
Yeah, of course.
And 3 weeks later, I called up the yellow taxi of San Francisco and I said, how do you become a taxi driver? They're like, well, you have to have a clean driver's license. And I said,
Yeah.
okay. And you have to take a test. I was like, okay. 3 weeks later, Easter Sunday, I was driving a yellow taxi.
That's so
So,
cool.
you know, so you know, it sounds really fancy, you know, investment banker and all that stuff. But I left investment banking. I waited some tables. I also did the yellow taxi while I was,
Wow.
you know, doing this, and just a whole world opened up
Ooh.
to me.
Wow, wow, wow. That is just so encouraging. So I'm curious, how did that move you to coaching, right? Because that's that story there, I know, and that's maybe linked to Paris because I'm trying to put the jigsaw together now. So tell us about that.
All right, it's a complicated story. So
Ooh.
just to confuse everyone, when I left Wall Street, I at the same time I met a French professional tennis player, and I moved to France.
So cool.
So people say to me, "Oh, what brought you to France?" And I've now, the succinct answer is lust. So I can't believe I
my
actually said
gosh.
on a recording, but that's true. And it
Thank
turned
you
out
for
you
that
can edit
honesty.
that
I love
love.
it. I love it.
It turned out that French professional tennis player was not for me. But I did meet a wonderful man who I later married, who is also French, and so I wound up doing graduate school, Paris, San Francisco, Paris, San Francisco, Paris, San Francisco. So I went to the California Institute of Integral Studies that had a phenomenal program on organizational development and transformation. And I basically remember, I didn't really have much of a job. I basically camped out in the school, in the office of the woman who ran the program, Mary Curran, basically until she gave me a job. And and she did. I mean, she, hired me to, do little junior facilitation things, and I made so many mistakes. And so anyway, organizational development. So I'm interested in not just coaching. So our work here at Integral, we do custom leadership development, executive and team coaching, cultural transformation, a number of different things. So I consider coaching a core and necessary skill of leadership, but it's not the only thing that I do. And I think that's maybe something important for coaches out there, is to have a few different things that you can offer your clients. Because quite honestly, there's some potential dangers in the world of coaching in the future, in that there's so many coaches and so many people out there that are doing a weekend workshop and then calling themselves a coach. That you have to, you have to have a few things, a few quivers, arrows in your quiver, I think is the thing. So,
very nice.
So I hope that makes you understand where the nexus is with coaching.
I love that. I love that L word. But anyway, that's love. I meant love. Right?
Of course.
Obviously.
That's what you
meant. So I often ask this question: how did you go on the first couple of years of your practice?
So when I was in San Francisco, I started a company called the Innovative Learning Group with two of my members of the cohort, one gentleman from Korea, who's since passed, and one gentleman from Japan. And we were all in the same program together. And you might want to interview Hidetake Enomoto, because he's an amazing coach. I wrote the first book on coaching in Japan. And he doesn't really do so much coaching anymore, but he's an amazing gentleman. Very worthwhile to talk to him. So we started, you might remember, so this was in the 90s, there were a lot of times where Asian companies were coming to the United States to kind of look at best practice. So we started this company that brought Japanese and Korean leaders to do these leadership journeys. They would be in the San Francisco Bay Area for about 2 weeks. And part of our job was to organize the companies they went to see, meet with different leaders, have some leadership development and some different events and things for them. So that was the beginning of starting a business. I subsequently went and lived in France for a while and worked for another company called the Oxford Group, which was a leadership and training company.
Yeah.
And then in 2003 to 2005 is when I did my work with the Newfield Network, which for your listeners is it's a great program on ontological coaching. There are many good ones out there. But that's where I learned, and the real cut my bones. Like I was already a coach for many years.
Yeah.
But that's where Janet Harvey, an ex ICF president, another person you should speak to, said to me, I called her up one day and I said, there's something about my coaching. I'm just feeling like it's a little stale. Like there's something not getting my clients the way I used to. And she said, Libby, you need to go to Newfield. And it had been the second or third time that I had heard it. And I thought, if Janet says this, it must be true. And I had done other development work back in the day with Janet. We were both in the same programs. And so I said, okay. And off I went. So I'm not sure if this is answering your question, but you kind of think these days of kind of iterations, right?
Yeah,
so I
it.
did my graduate work, that brought me to something else. I started this little company with my two classmates, that brought us to something else. And so on.
Yes. I see that pattern, right? And I'm listening to it, and with all that awe, because you're just going down that journey, and I can just imagine the stories and all those different insights and people that you were meeting along the way. Like it's like that journey to Wonderland.
Yeah, it was incredible. When I was in graduate school, I think it was the 1995 was the United Nations Forum on Women in Beijing. And I saw a little note at my school that they were looking for speakers. And I was like, oh, that sounds fun. I'll go and do that. So I applied and I got in. So I was a speaker at the United Nations. It wasn't in Beijing. It was actually sort of outside of Beijing. And, and I talked to a bunch of, women Asian entrepreneurs and stuff. And I said, whatever you do, don't be like a male entrepreneur, be a woman entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden there were like newspapers that were interviewing me, and I was a little worried I might get kicked out of China, but so there's all this stuff that can open up if you iterate.
And that kind of segues really nicely to the next question about brave, right? What would be your bravest moment? Just calling back all those memories that you want to share on the show.
One story, I was working with the chief operating officer of a European company. It's actually a global company, but it was the chief operating officer of Europe. Yeah. It's a big deal at the time. My son was maybe 6 or 7. Yeah, something about that. And he had to talk to me. The COO had to talk to me. It was like 7:30 at night. He wanted a coaching session. He was kind of like used to getting always what he wanted. And I got my son set up and I said, look, this really important call, and you need to, just play here. And I started teaching him how to make paper airplanes and do that sort of stuff. So the call comes in. So I'm in this little apartment. I go and I start doing my work with this guy. And then, like after 20 minutes, it's like, knock, 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 mommy.
That's so beautiful.
How do you do, right? So I'm on there with this, guy that I'm trying to, like he's, this will get us other work in the future and things. And I just took a breath and I just said, Pascal, you need to hold on. And I'm at home. There's no hold button. I was like, I'm sorry, you just need to hold on for a few minutes. Yeah. I put down the phone and my son comes in and I'm like, okay, so here's how you do the airplane. Da, 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 da. And for me, that was a big risk because I felt like he might go, what's the deal? I'm the guy,
Yeah.
And I pick up the phone and he's like, that's so cool. I was like, I'm really sorry. He's like, no, he's like, nobody ever does that to me. And that's so cool that you chose your son over me. I said, I'll choose my son over you anytime. I mean, I like you a lot, um, but you know, and I said, I've tried. And he said, no. And I think it's a small moment, right? But here was a really important person, and he turned out to be, for about a decade, a huge proponent of our services at Integral. And I just was like, you know, I should have probably said, I'll call you back, but I just put the phone down. And so he heard everything. So wonderful. You got to do what you got to do. Health and family comes first.
That's so beautiful. Woo! I love that, because that is something that is going to continue to happen, right? With the work from home situation, right? It's so real, isn't it? You've probably seen videos of people coming in the background, and thank goodness we have the whole virtual background these days, right? To kind of, you know, block things out. But sometimes it happens, and it's okay. That's part of life.
It's okay. I actually think it makes us all more human. Absolutely. So that's just what's happening now. We don't have to be so you know, so perfect.
It's true. So that's so true. So Libby, how many years again, if you can help me with the number of years you've been coaching?
Oh, 26 years. Yeah.
Okay. So 26 years, I'm going to ask you to kind of like compress it and squeeze out 3 wonderful insights, right, that you want to share on the show. Here we go.
All right. I'll be quick. 1, don't work harder than your client.
Wow.
2, stay curious. Forget all your models and your things. Really be present and just watch and listen and be with somebody. And that curiosity can show you these little incongruencies that are a doorway into something that's not yet being revealed. And I'd say trust your value. Number 3 is trust your value, meaning I got it after a certain amount of time. I used to worry a lot about, you know, was this good enough? Was it gonna, you know, if then I'm not coaching if I'm worried about my performance. I realized that if I just showed up and in the course of an hour asked one good question, just one, that would be valuable. And so then I'm no longer worried. I can show up. It doesn't matter, you know, I could, you know, coach Joe Biden. Doesn't matter. We're all human.
Yeah. So good. Wow. You know, all 3 points are wonderful. And the third one really hit me because I put the pressure on myself too. Right? Just saying it out there, right? And I guess if I ask you, how did you manage to overcome that? Right? I'm sure there was a time when you did put pressure on yourself. What was that? What was that turning point for you?
You know, I think that we are not a good indicator, our own evaluation of whether there's value. So I can remember having sessions with clients and I'd get off the phone and go, and they'd come back the next week or 2 weeks or, you know, whenever our next session was and go, oh my God, so remember when you said that and da 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 da? I'm like, no. Well, and then I remembered this and I'm like, so the sessions I thought were kind of ho-hum, you know, sometimes turned out to be the best sessions for them. So my point, I guess what I realized was presence. Martin Heidegger, German philosopher, said true listening is worship. True listening is worship. And so if we really create the crucible where people can reveal themselves and feel safe. That, more than anything that comes out of my mouth, is so much more important. So it's not about us. It's not about us.
So good. Just letting that sink in, right? Even in me, right? Thank you. Thank you. That is beautiful.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
If you had the chance to do it all over again, Libby, well, what would you do differently?
I probably would have left Wall Street earlier.
Wow.
I probably wouldn't have chosen math and computer science, but that was kind of the pressure of the, this is the area that's going to give you a good job, kid, so you better go there.
Yeah.
I told my father that I wanted to study theater in UCLA. He was like, oh no. He was probably right. What else? I probably would have been less hard on other people in my life. I used to fly pre-COVID a lot for my work. And, when you're a frequent flyer, you start to get particular about which seat you're in and what the food's like and which airline you're on and
Yes.
And I think that because I'm demanding, I'm challenging to my clients. I can also sometimes be too challenging. And so having come to more of a meditation practice earlier would have probably helped. For any of your astrological folks out there, I'm a lion and a Chinese dragon. So there's a lot of fire going on here. And so I have to, learning how to just manage that energy is important, because it can be all consuming, both for me and for someone else. So I wish I had learned a little bit more of that.
Thank you. That is so valuable, right? I often ask this question on the show. What do you think that future of coaching is going to be like?
This is the $56 million question. With digital transformation, with the pandemic, with climate crisis, with all of the different systemic issues coming together, there's no doubt in my mind that coaching is essential. I would actually say that in some places, the coaching conversation has replaced confession, like in Catholicism, the place where people would go to their priest or their pastor or their synagogue, their rabbi or imam to talk about things. It may sound terrible. I'm not saying we're taking over the spiritual realm, but I'm saying that the place where you would reveal yourself and maybe come to a new awakening has moved into this place, which I think is valuable. It doesn't replace that, of course, but it's a very, and please don't misunderstand my word here, a very intimate type of thing, coaching, right? Even if it's a team coaching thing, especially one-on-one coaching. And yet with the digital transformation, with economies of scale, we are seeing people try to do, there already exists AI bot coaches,
Yeah.
right? The beginnings of that. Like you ask it a
Correct.
question, it asks you some sort of a question back, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Right. So there's this, and there are things like BetterUp, which is this company that's
Yeah.
looking to provide you an on-demand coach on their phone. Like this is, the big
Correct.
new thing. I think the future is the commoditization. In one future is the commoditization of coaching. And I would say coaches beware. And there's nothing wrong necessarily with bringing more coaching to more people.
Yeah.
I'm all for that. I think that's a good thing. I think when we start looking at all coaching being equal, as if we are all little cogs in a wheel of coaching, I think there's a real danger, because you can create a process that's better, no problem. But when you're talking about the nexus, the conversation that comes between you and I,
Yeah.
and trying to make that methodical
Yeah.
or predictable.
Correct.
I have to say, and I wasn't planning to do this, but another podcaster called me out on it. I am saying buyer beware of BetterUp. It's a shiny object. It looks slick, right? They say only 8% of people of coaches get in, but they're showing you all these different things. And you can have a 15-minute coaching session on your phone, and there's the coach there to give you the advice that you need. And I'm like, it's in their roller. And I'm like, coaches do not give advice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that I wouldn't suggest a book to you or, introduce you to someone or that sort of thing, but advice, that's not what we do. So right. I know some people who have organizations that have tried BetterUp, and they think it's going to work great, and they find out that the uptake is not there. So I'm on a little personal rampage at this moment. Sorry, BetterUp. So coaches, you're going to need to expand your tools, not just tools, but also stand up for not being commoditized.
Beautiful. I agree with you. And I'm all for it, right? Because it talks about how we can, in my words, democratize coaching and bring it to the far regions where they need it so badly.
So watch this space. There are things coming, and some might be really good and some might be less good.
So Libby, just got a couple more questions. One of them is your master wisdom. And this is for the budding coaches coming in fresh, right? All shiny, all ready to serve the world, right? What would be your master wisdom for them?
First of all, I think it's a calling. If you come into coaching thinking you're going to make tons of money, you're probably not in the right business. Doesn't mean that some people won't or that you can't. It's just that shouldn't be your motivation. Go start a ice cream shop or something. So I think that's one thing. I tell all new coaches that come to me that it takes at least 3 years to build a practice. So in the sense that you're regularly, you can make a living off coaching. So you need to think about that. Like if you want to, transition out of a full-time job, how are you going to do that? And so how do you build that in so that you can slowly but surely move over? And nice. I would say 3 is you have to be unafraid to market yourself. Now, the way I marketed myself was to not market myself. I marketed Integral. And I was lucky to, we now have 250 coaches, consultants, facilitators, designers worldwide. And, they were handpicked and they went through a rigorous peer review process. So, but if you're John Smith coaching, it's absolutely fine. You just have to find the thing that you do best. It might be you're really good with IT executives. It might be that you're really good with, I don't know, some other kind of coaching.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to put that out, your niche.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'll get other work, you'll get other work, but say, I'm the such and such, so I often call myself the CXO whisperer, right? So that, or an organizational midwife. Right. So find that thing that you do and then do that. Seth Godin just came out with a book called The Practice, and I highly recommend it. And he's a marketing guy ostensibly, but he's done a lot of self-development. So I think it might be a useful read for some of your listeners.
Thank you. And we as coaches ask powerful questions or transformational questions. What will be your question today for the listeners?
What have you done recently to lift up someone else, not just someone that can pay for your services? Because ultimately, coaching is a profession that is about witnessing people and observing and creating space for them. So in a time where many parts of the world are moving towards a more totalitarian stance, where we're dividing, where we're separating, what are you doing to listen to the other side that you might not agree with? What are you doing to reach out? So probably way more than one question, but it's more of a kind of a framework. Coaching is more than just the person in front of you.
So good, so good. Woo! I think that the world needs to hear that. It's not just one way or the highway. There are different roads and there are different things that suit different people. And there's a whole need to also accept that into the way of life. Beautiful. So this is the time, Libby. Please help us connect with you. Whatever handles, programs coming up, let us know.
Sure, absolutely. So I guess a couple of things.
Yeah.
You can find out more about Integral, our company, at www.integralcoaches.com. We didn't talk about it, but I've recently created an app for better, faster feedback. And so talk about technology, but this is to enable conversations. And it's based on the neuroscience of how our brain reacts and responds to feedback. And it turns everything we've ever thought about feedback on its head. I'm personally, another mission of mine is to go out there and blow up the whole 360-degree feedback market. So you can find out more about that at www.backfeedapp.com. And because many of your listeners are coaches, we do have an affiliates program where you can offer this BackFeed app to your clients. You might find that it's interesting to offer to your clients, and there is a kind of a residual income from that. What I want to say also just about BackFeed quickly is that the basic app is free. You can download it now on the App Store or Google Play. So you can start giving better, faster feedback without anything, free. The enterprise version has a little bit of cost, but it's not very much.
Yep.
And then I think for those who are listening, who are coaches and who are looking for community and who are looking for learning, whether you're certified or not, we have something called the Advanced Coaching Practicum. And you can find it at the Integral Coaches website. I think it's integralcoaches.com/ACP, Advanced Coaching Practicum. And that is an ACSTH, ICF approved program. We're about to get our ACTP, where people can come in at any time and learn the fundamentals of ontological coaching, and then be with our senior practitioners, because our senior practitioners come in all the time and just kind of honing their skills. So it's a place you can get CCEU and ACSTH credit for if you're going for certification. We don't do it for a living, so it does have a cost, but it's lower than most other coaching programs. And we do give out several diversity scholarships a year. For those people that are maybe looking for something. And of course, as I've said, Mel, you are my guest anytime there.
Thank you. Thank you again. This has been the 100 Master Coaches with my beautiful guest, Libby, and myself signing out. We hope to catch you on the next one. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you so much.
You have been watching the 100 Master Coaches series with your host, Coach Mel, MCC. Brought to you by Catalyst Coach. www.catalystcoach.live. We will be right back with our next Master Coach on the 100 Master Coaches series.